what the place is like, and then that might also allow the people who are not there to get a feel for the place. There's a picture on, if you Google courtroom 4 at Royal Courts of Justice, then it gives you a sense of what the room looks like. Mm. So, I mean, I don't know if you can put up that picture when we're talking, and then that people get a sense of what it's like in the room, and also what the building looks like from outside. There's a beautiful picture of the Royal Courts of Justice. So, it's a very, very old building. Mm. I'm just going to quickly check how old it is. Hate Google. No. No. Okay. Mm. No, no. What? Yeah, yeah. What it felt like. What was the atmosphere like? Maybe if you ask that, um, then I can tell you about the protest outside. And
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Uh, Anonymous Bites are back. It is August 12th, 2021. This is the day after the Assange hearing about the appeal by the US government against the judge previously stopping extradition to the United States. And we have Deepa driver on, and she knows all about it because she was in the actual courthouse. She was there during the entire session, and pretty much knows everything that went on. And well, I'm hoping you can help me inform all the listeners about the entire situation there, how it felt for you. Because it's been almost a year, right, since the last court sessions, or
yeah, well, 6 months. I think January was the verdict. So just for people who haven't been there, this building that you go to, the Royal Courts of Justice, I asked if a picture of it could be put up because it really is quite a grand building. It was built in the 1800s, and I don't know about you guys, but I can hear an echo back, so I hope you can't hear my voice twice over. Once is bad enough. But anyway, so you have this grand building, and as I headed up there today, I could see not today, yesterday. I'm losing track of the days. There's this huge gathering outside, lots of people there's a lot of noise, lot of protest. It's quite a narrow-ish, well, not a very narrow, unlike Belmarsh, but narrow-ish pavement, and it's at the boundaries of Westminster and the City of London. So for those of you who've been to London before, you've probably been to Charing Cross Station, and there's a big road outside it called the Strand, and one end of the Strand is where you have King's College and the Royal Courts of Justice, and the other end is where you have Trafalgar Square, etc. So we were at the Royal Courts of Justice end. You'd see a lot of people there, some in full costume, in the sense that people wearing a Guantanamo suit, and lots of banners, lots of people with banners, some people with their pets, but a fully crowded pavement outside. Unlike the Old Bailey, where there was a demonstrable kind of police presence, for those of you who may have been there at the hearings in last year, at the Royal Courts of Justice, they have these formidable kind of metal gates outside, but not so much of a police presence in terms of being aggressive towards people on the street. It was a real surprise in terms of the change in atmosphere between the Old Bailey, or Westminster Magistrates Court, and the Royal Court of Justice, because for those of you who were here last year, you will remember that the Old Bailey and at Westminster Magistrates Court, they went out of their way to keep the public out of their way to keep any court observers out of their way to keep the only people who were treated with some modicum of decency were the journalists. And this time around, actually, observers such as myself, legal observers such as myself, were granted a place in court, which was quite a relief, because we've become used to British injustice rather than British justice. So this was quite a change. The hearing was heard by two High Court judges, a man and a woman, and inside the courtroom, it's quite an old courtroom with wooden walls of the courtroom, and Julian wasn't there in person. He was beamed in via the video link. Very sad to see him. His hair's grown out, his face is swollen. He really looked terrible. And almost it was like watching seeing a teenager, who's just given up on things and just unhappy with life. That was the feeling, but also deep, deep sense of sadness that was quite visible. Only a small number of people, again, were given access to the court, but at least this time the process was slightly fairer in that other people got access electronically. The judge, when they came in, tried to, provide a few words of context to say what was going on. Now, with all this fanfare and pomp and the lawyers wearing these, wigs, which some of you may have seen in the old kind of English law, not cartoons, television programs, those special white wigs, like, they're out of Marie Antoinette or one of the courtiers, that kind of wig, and the judges in their full robes and things, and even somebody to hold the little doors open when the judges come onto the podium, push their chair in for them. It's all intended to create this effect of deep respect for the judge and this belief that the British justice system has an elevated place. But what was happening in that hearing was tremendous injustice, because we spent, as some of you will know, of course, Julian won his extradition case, but won it on in relation to, so the way the case is won, the case runs, the extradition case is run, is there's a presumption in favor of extradition unless we go one of the bars. And the bar to extradition in Julian's case was, number one, that he I'm Mark, I'm not sure. I can hear quite a lot of background noise.
I
Are
have
you
myself
able to hear?
muted, so
Oh, I don't know where it's coming from. It's okay. Um, Sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. So when you're in an extradition process, the expectation is you will be extradited unless you trigger one of the bars to extradition. And in Julian's case, the bar to extradition that was triggered was the fact that they expected that, given his resourcefulness and also his autism spectrum disorder, he was likely to commit suicide. The other thing was, of course, the US prison conditions. Now, the US asked to overturn the judge's judgment, and what they were arguing, they had 5 grounds that they were arguing, and they were granted 3 of those grounds. So the way it works is that you put in an appeal, you say what ground you're arguing on, and the US put forward 5 grounds. 3 of those grounds were accepted. The 2 that were not accepted was that the judge placed an inordinate weight on the opinion of Professor Michael Kopelman. Now, Kopelman is the most premier forensic psychiatrist in the UK, and he's also very highly respected because of the enormous amount of work he does on things like the death penalty, etc., and his understanding of the court process. The US argued that Professor Kopelman, at the time of writing his first affidavit, having had a discussion with Julian, having had a discussion with Stella, knew that Stella was Julian's partner and she had 2 children with him. And they argued that one of the barriers to people committing suicide is the fact that you have children, etc., and family ties. And Stella had said in her report to Professor Kopelman, or her discussion with Professor Kopelman, that she didn't want the identity of her children to be revealed, and also that, or rather that was the implication, and that she thought that Julian would commit suicide were he to be extradited. And Professor Kopelman relied on that as one of the various things he looked into in relation to Julian. The US argued that Professor Kopelman failed in his duty to the court by not disclosing to the court at that stage itself that he knew that Julian had 2 children with Stella. And therefore, the rest of Professor Kopelman's assessment should be overturned as well, and it should be given less weightage, or at least no weightage, or at best no weightage, because he had knowingly and willfully misled the court as to his understanding. And as an independent expert, because Professor Kopelman, although he was nominated by the defense, like the other 2 psychiatric medical witnesses, was meant to be an independent witness. The other thing they said was that largely the argument in court was about this. The other ground was less. It was less clear what their argument was, because they spent most of their time trying to destroy Professor Kopelman's reputation. The defense argued that yes, Professor Kopelman had known, and yes, by the time he wrote his second affidavit to the court, which was in August 2020, Stella had become public to say that they were her children. And the reason he did not disclose that Julian and Stella had 2 children was for the safety of the children. Because as you will remember, the US, who was surveilling Julian, were trying to steal the nappy of the baby, trying to steal the dummy of the baby. And Professor Kopelman didn't take this decision by himself. He asked the defense solicitor what he should do, because he wanted to be diplomatic about revealing their identity, or rather not revealing their identity, but he knew that his duty to the court was to disclose everything. The US said that the defense should have informed the court that they wanted this information to be private and then disclose this information. The solicitor on Julian's side had apparently told Professor Kopelman that it's not that he shouldn't disclose it to the court, that he should delay the disclosure to his second affidavit to the court so that she could take further legal advice. Anyhow, on the basis of this, Professor Kopelman's assessment of Julian was very thorough, and what is interesting is that Baretsa's report, as we know, Judge Baretsa, Magistrate Baretsa, has taken a fairly strong position to support many of the things that the US said. But in the case of Professor Kopelman, her view was that although he had in effect misled the court by not telling her that at the initial stage itself that they had two children, she did not find it to be misleading in his report because he had been thorough, he had been dispassionate, he had explained everything across his two reports and in verbal things. He had acknowledged that he could have informed the court in advance, but she thought it was only human given the risks that were posed to the family and the child, or the risks that he was concerned were posed to the family and the child, because, of course, Baretsa doesn't acknowledge these risks. It was okay for him to do what he did. The decision yesterday was that no, it was not okay for him to do that, and therefore, while they didn't agree that the appeal is upheld on that count, because obviously the appeal discussion will happen on a different date. Yesterday was just what grounds of appeal can be argued. They argued that they said that it is arguable that the US can argue to strike out Professor Kopelman's evidence, which means that the only evidence that remains will be the evidence of their two experts, which is Dr. Blackwood and Professor Sina Fazal. Interesting because Dr. Blackwood only met Julian in prison very briefly, and the extent of the discussions that Julian's had with Professor Kopelman, whom he has opened up to much more than he has with some of the other psychiatrists, will then be taken out of the scope. Now, all of this is, I guess, in some sense, a setback, of course, but it's not a major setback in that, the appeal was going to be heard anyway. What's changed is the grounds within which the appeal can be heard. So in my opinion, and others may completely disagree with this, so this is a layperson's opinion, please do not take it as any expertise in some sense, but as a trade unionist and as somebody who organizes, I think the fight in the courts is a difficult fight to win because the courts are looking at things very narrowly. They, for example, completely disregard the risk that was posed to Julian, which made him seek refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. They've completely ignored the revelation which took place, a month and a half ago, where Sigrid Torderson, who's the witness that the US is using in order to say that Julian tried to commit computer intrusion, which was the only criminal charge. And Siggy agreed that he lied about it, and he's a known pedophile and fraudster. So while, of course, people may change and people may be honest about some things and not honest about other things, for the FBI to fund a known pedophile and fraudster in order to get him to lie and build a case about Julian Assange is in itself something that should have caused this case to be overturned, leave alone all the issues that we have seen before, which is last year we knew that, or well before last year, we knew that the US had been spying on Julian and there was a breach of attorney-client privilege. If this basic safeguard of due process in terms of a fair trial cannot take place, then that trial is worth nothing. And it's shameful that this trial is going on. So as a trade unionist, as somebody who organizes people, I think the battle for Julian is going to be won by those on the ground outside the court. So on October 27th and 28th, when this hearing is there, I would urge everybody all over the world who cares about Julian to organize mass, serious protests in their own city, in London, elsewhere, so that there is a vast gathering that signifies the strength of public opinion against the way in which he's being treated. Yesterday, his partner Stella was being interviewed and she broke down. I mean, the horror that their family has gone through for 10 years, and the horror that Julian has gone through for doing what is the job of an honest journalist. It's just ridiculous. I mean, this is just unfair and wrong. And if the courts will not look at any of that and only look at very narrow things like saying, oh, Kopelman lied because he didn't say this, oh, so-and-so did this, and look at very minor parts of the puzzle where Julian's side hasn't done something perfectly, then this is not something where we can engage with in a fair and free manner. And we should not get taken in by the pomp and the splendor of this wonderful Royal Courts of Justice in wonderful old London, because actually it's all members of the establishment. Emma Arbuthnot, who Declassified UK have shown very clearly, she's the judge who was the presiding magistrate in Julian's case all through the time at the Westminster Magistrates Court, had serious and material conflicts of interest. Her son has investment in Darktrace. Her husband is partnering with MI5's Richard Dearlove. These kinds of people who have serious conflicts of interest have not disclosed it. Yet nobody said a word about it. Yet Professor Kopelman doesn't, for very good reason, given that minor children were at risk, doesn't say that Julian and Stella were a couple, although he does acknowledge this later. All of a sudden, Julian's side of the case isn't perfect. This is a nonsense. And we should all say it is, because, the more we engage with this process and expect the lawyers and the judges to do what's right, the more they realize we are fools sitting here, because what they're doing is a complete travesty of the law. So that's my initial comment about how I felt, Mark.
Yeah, because now we're literally at the point that we have to argue if Assange is, it literally says if he is mentally ill enough
That's
that he
insane.
would that he would commit suicide in America, right? And that is what this trial is about now. We literally have a journalist and who is not a criminal locked up for 10 years and facing.
He's been tortured by the U.S. I mean, it's crazy to me that he's literally been tortured by the U.S. and UK, and now his legal team has to argue the extent of the damage that his mind is damaged. It's insane to me to think that you have to argue the merits of your own mental health assessment, deeming the fact that, yes, you've been tortured by a genocidal empire.
Well, this is what the U.S. government is arguing now. They literally argue that he was not so ill that he would be unable to resist killing himself if extradited. And that, like Deepa said, that it becomes a travesty when your court case is about that now. It's
I think what's even more interesting, Mark, is that they're saying, this is what is mind-blowing. The idea is, he survived Belmarsh and he survived the Ecuadorian embassy, so he is resilient. So let's send him to the US, because he will survive prison there as long as we medicate him enough. This is the nonsense that is being paraded in court. And this is the nonsense argument that all the lawyers are engaging with. The CPS should be ashamed of itself for being an ally to the US and celebrating. I saw them celebrating in court yesterday when their grounds of appeal were allowed. They are getting a perverse pleasure out of this, out of hounding and torturing an innocent man.
Yeah.
And it is important that we put the scrutiny on the CPS, which was formerly led by Keir Starmer, which is right now to this day. Nikki Constantinidou is asking for freedom of information requests. The CPS has answered first that they destroyed the documentation. Then, when she did further reviews with them, it was evident that the documentation was available. Now they're asking for an exemption on the documentation. So they lied when they said the documentation had been destroyed. The CPS is the criminal prosecution service. It is not. It is criminal in itself. It's not prosecuting criminals. It is criminal in the way it is behaving in this case. And it is shameful the way they are involved in stitching up Assange by, forcing the Swedes not to go ahead with closing the preliminary investigation, by right now rejoicing when the grounds of appeal are won, because they know that that's another way to stitch up Assange. And their appeal can have all the different angles that it can. And within their team, there was an American-sounding person there, no doubt from their masters in the US. And they had a very strong team sitting there, all wanting the same thing. And it's just depressing.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch, though, just how, I don't know, even from an outsider's perspective almost, I feel like the US's legal arguments are absolutely insane. I mean, I think it was at one point yesterday when they were showing concern over revealing the identity of Stella Morris and her kids with Julian. Claire Dobbin goes, "Oh, well, they didn't seem too worried about that when they were publishing leaked information." What kind of weak argument is that? And it's being said in a court of law against Julian Assange. This is the same lawyer that got flat out embarrassed by the witnesses a couple months ago because she literally had people going, "Oh, thanks, Claire. I'm so glad you asked me that." And their whole legal argument, on top of being crazy, it's weak. So I just... bootlicking idiots that are siding with this, that want to let the U.S. gain international jurisdiction over the free press, because it's not the U.S.'s place to be involved in any of this. He's an Australian journalist in the UK.
It's absolutely insane, and I think we can continue to talk about it, or we can start, forget about talking about how bad this system is, because we all know it's bad. I mean, this is a system in a country which is supposedly the 5th richest country in the world, where loads of people are dying of hunger, struggling with hunger. Young children are not. The government is paying for lots of their mates to have lots of money coming out of selling masks and PPE to the NHS, things that don't even work, and they then withdraw funding from school meals for the poorest children. And this is a sham democracy. And we can either, say, okay, we'll sit as part of the system and try and work within the system, which is what the lawyers have to do, and all praise to them, because it must be really soul destroying to be the lawyer on Assange's team and constantly come up against a system which you've supposedly ground your teeth on, and you think, oh yeah, this is the legal system, this is what I'm seeking to uphold, and then you come up against this nonsense time and time again. It must be tremendously depressing. But the rest of us have to organize outside the courts in terms of getting loads of people to come together, so that we're not little pockets of people in various parts. Everybody coming together, making a noise, I mean a virtual noise rather than a real noise. But how do I say this? Showing that we have a vast number of people who want Parliament to do something about this. Both in Europe, and not just in Europe, but in Australia and America and the UK, we have to all come together.
Yeah, I think at this point it is just like we're all now seeing what is going on and how they're treating this man and his family, and how they're treating all of us, and that at this point we just have to realize what we're actually dealing with. And I think Stella Moore is actually, yeah, said it right because she said these are not just items of law. This is our lives. We have the right to exist, and we have a right to live, and we have a right for this nightmare to come to an end once and for all. And she also said that he's faced sustained threats to his life for the past 10 years. And when we get to the point that we're now arguing, is this man ill enough to commit suicide in the U.S.? Is this are we actually discussing this openly? Is this how it is now? That we just have to realize we have to protest this now. We have to stop this now from happening, because they're just not. This is not a fair trial at this point, right? This is the.
Yeah. It's enough is enough, It's not a fair trial. It's a very stilted trial where the grounds are essentially whatever grounds the other side dictates. The presumption is that he is guilty. There is no presumption of innocence, and the treatment is that I was looking at him yesterday, and I was just so deeply concerned about how long can somebody who's been tortured in this way, how long can they cope?
Yeah, at first we could argue at least he was getting a trial in the UK where Ecuador just gave him away, right? But now at this point, this trial turns into some kind of public crucifixion.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it. This is just a public crucifixion of an independent journalist who is not a criminal. And
I mean, that's notes that's coming straight from the U.S. carceral system, where the trial in and of itself is part of the torture in the way that it's completely dragged out to psychologically abuse the people within it, like that. And it's my thought that for the journalists that were in that Zoom meeting observing the court hearing, that they were allowed to see that clear shot of Julian looking old and disheveled, because it's showing exactly the effect that doing this can have on you. Because I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things that this case is meant to do is it's meant to scare people into submission and show what happens to real dissent. Now, the problem is that's gonna push more people to act, or at least that's my belief, because if I see something like that, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want you fuckers to sleep. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't, I guess, at the end of the day, I think we have to create systems and processes where people like this do not get into positions of power again. And I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily. I feel your anger, but I wouldn't necessarily phrase it like that or think of it like that. But I would. I don't know. I mean, I can't even challenge you in some ways, because I can see why you feel the way you feel. You're absolutely right to, But on the other hand, I guess I'm too much off the system to express my anger in the way you do. I don't know. Maybe it's just a difference. I feel very strongly that we need to hold the CPS to account, because there are good. The sad thing is that in all these systems there are good people in there, and I'm hoping that this hearing and watching how being made aware of how this is happening will get them all to speak up and whistleblow rather than hide. Because if it's happening to Julian today, it will happen to you when you're made redundant, when you're kicked out of your job, when your brothers and sisters are treated badly by either the carceral system or by other systems that let them down. And even the most wealthy, even the most powerful are vulnerable to this. Because you don't know how your brothers, your sisters, your children, your parents will end up being treated. And which is why we have to support whistleblowers. Because they tell us how the system really works on the inside. So anyway, sorry, I don't know if that answers your question,
But you're right. I mean, this is
Yeah.
press freedom is our human right. It's a right of all of us. And he always said himself too that they're not just coming for him. Like they're coming for all of us, of course. And he is just the first. He's not even the first. Now there's others. They're already targeting others at the same time. I mean, but yeah, he's made an example of, I guess, and it is not only just like to destroy press freedom, but it's also to scare other journalists to such an extent that they never want to be in this situation. And but like you said, Deepa, if we organize well and we have like make sure there is such a large resistance against it, there are so many protesters against this, that also other journalists will feel supported. He will feel supported, and they will also see that there are people who actually care about this, and that, well, I'm personally, I believe that it is the majority of people who actually care about this, and they would be on the side of press freedom, right? I mean, even though there's and they might not even know what's going on yet. I think the majority of people will support Assange and will support press freedom if they know the story. Because personally, anyone I ever spoken to, like in my own town and in my own country and stuff, and when I speak to people about this, at first they don't know much about it, but when you explain the actual situation, even in an objective way, right, then they're usually very supportive of it. And
True.
there is some true power there, right? People are, when they are made aware of the situation, they become supportive, and the media are going like they're doing everything to make sure that doesn't happen, of course, and we deal with that every day with the censorship and shadow banning and all these things. But I do notice that support is growing, but it should go faster, I guess, and we should focus on the end of October and make sure that there are like massive protests this time. Like not just a few hundred, we need everyone just there.
Yeah, and I think we have to also get the momentum going. I feel I've missed a trick here. I was trying to organize an event the week before the hearings, and I didn't because I just didn't realize how quite. I don't know. I just didn't think that it would make that much of a difference to the conversation. But actually, each of our little contributions makes a huge difference. So, can I suggest, Mark, that we have a really big Twitter storm, maybe the weekend before, as well as maybe once in the week before that hearing, and also, not just so that we use other social media other than Twitter, because there's a lot of people who are not on Twitter. So I know we hate Facebook and we hate WhatsApp and we hate all, but if you are in any group in those places, encourage people to come and protest in whatever way they can, online, writing to their MPs to increase the attention in the run up to that, and to put a lot of pressure on the establishment to not rig this.
Yeah, and people who listen, you just flood all the Telegram groups, right, and flood these WhatsApp groups, and make everyone aware of this, and make these short videos on YouTube and keep posting them, right? Use all the possible platforms to raise attention, awareness to this, and then we organize something really big a few weeks before, and we probably a week or 2 weeks before that we actually go really hard on it. And but yeah, also we need everything, right? Even these horrible platforms like Facebook, we need those too. Everything. It's just how it is.
Yeah. We are all Assange. I mean, I always say to like sprinkle it around like pixie dust wherever you go. Like even if you don't feel like talking to people, just leave cards wherever you are. I always have flyers that I'll leave that I've left on like airplanes before, at a dinner table if you're going out somewhere, like if you're at a coffee shop, leave cards there. You have a doctor's appointment, leave cards at the desk. So that way, even if you don't have to talk to people, there's some way that the information is at least spreading just a little bit, because you never know what that might grow into eventually.
And you're absolutely right. That's you've captured it beautifully by with very practical things that people can do. It's protesting isn't just about standing outside and shouting into the ether, just outside a particular place. It is also about using all the different venues that are open to you, wherever you go. Even if you manage to get one more person talking about it, even if they don't understand everything about it, it's a complex case, it's gone on for 10 years, it's hard to understand. But at least most people understand the fundamental premise that a journalist shouldn't be in prison and shouldn't be in Hellmarsh, of all prison.
Yeah, the Guantanamo Bay of London for a journalist. I remember at one point going through a list of 797 prisoners that were held in Belmarsh, and Julian was one of two that was in there related to bail charges, which he already technically served his sentence for anyway, even though the charge was bullshit to begin with. So, oh my god. It's funny because he's in there with like literal rapists and terrorists that are getting less harsh sentences than he is, because that's just how backwards this whole case is, and that's how backwards our whole quote-unquote justice system is.
But Gloria, don't you realize that he's so dangerous that he needs to be inside a glass box in court?
Like, yeah. He needs treatment worse than freaking Nazis, AK. For publishing classified information. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just a joke. I mean, like, this whole thing, it's been a show trial the whole entire time. And now this judge now says that, the U.S. can appeal on everything, every single count. Like, what the fuck, man? It pisses me off, honestly. They are doing exactly to the T of what they said that they were going to do in the Stratford documents. From Barrico Technologies, Palantir, and what's the other company, Mark?
HB Gary?
HB Gary, yeah. So, they're doing exactly that plot, dragging Julian around from country to country. They said they were going to drag him around from country to country and charge him in other countries. I mean, like, that's exactly what they've been doing this whole entire time. It's dragging him around from legal case to legal case. I mean, like, it just pisses me off. They fabricated rape charges in Sweden? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we have to be very careful about is calling it charges, because there were never any charges. There was always preliminary investigation. In any justice system, you don't keep something in preliminary investigation stage for almost 7 years unless you are trying to fit somebody up or stitch somebody up. This is what happens in countries which we deem backward. So, we've got to keep the focus in terms of what Julian did, what he achieved, and what he brought to the world. So I guess I get how angry everyone is, but I think we've got to change the narrative somehow and start talking about what he's done, especially now that British troops are coming out of Afghanistan, and we supposedly went there to civilize the natives and prevent women from getting attacked, and now actually You can, when you look at the stats of what Britain has achieved there in terms of the number of people who've died, the number of people who've been whose lives have been destroyed and upended, and where we leave the country now, it's not like we've created any iota of progress. And we have to start talking about the war criminals, about the Blairs and the Bushes, and start going after them, because I think, perhaps in some ways rightly so, everything has always been very softly on this case in some ways. People don't talk about certain things, and now we've got to really go on the offensive and attack them for the kinds of injustices they're doing. So, by the way, hi AJ. I just
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean when I said fabricated rape charges. What I meant was they fabricated that whole entire narrative. I didn't mean that he was actually charged. I meant they fabricated the narrative of rape charges.
Yeah.
They pushed this through the media the whole entire time. The whole entire time they were talking about Julian. All these big media outlets always saying that he was accused or not accused of rape. They were saying that he was accused of rape and that that he was charged. And
this is actually true, Deepa. This is actually true. They did make it appear as if he was actually charged for rape. I mean, even if you start posting on Twitter and stuff, you have people commenting below it saying the guy was charged for rape and stuff.
Right. Because and
the interesting thing is in the way the word rape is used in Sweden is very different from the way the word rape is used in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And those kinds of nuances, you can't. I mean, it's just impossible to sit and have a reasoned debate with anybody, especially on a medium like Twitter. So I know what you mean when you say they pretended there were those charges when there weren't actually any. So yeah, I get you.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because you.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped in very quickly, didn't I?
Yeah, you jumped right in. Yeah. Sorry. No, that's okay. I just wanted to clarify that. I just when I said they fabricated it, that's why I said fabricated. But I guess I wasn't really that clear. But yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. They did so much to this guy, and they just drug Julian around from just bullshit case after case, and then. I mean, they tried to kill him. We know that to be a fact now. Even though, I reported early on it because there's some case where Julian said under testimony that his life and associates around him were threatened. I mean, he's been saying that they've been trying to kill him and his associates and everything. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. It's insane. It's so criminal. It's honestly so criminal. And now you have this whole showcase with this trial that just has been. It's been a show the whole entire time. Back and forth. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, they put him in a glass freaking box.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick for the listeners, Deepa asked at the start of the interview to put a picture on of the actual courthouse, and I did so. You can see the courthouse. It's a super old building. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Deepa? Again, I mean.
No, I think I said what I wanted to say. I mean, for those who've joined late, I was trying to say that if you look at that building, at that grandeur from the 18th century, what is it, 19th century? Is it 19th? Yeah, 19th century, 1800s. Sorry, I always get that back. You would think that an adult would not make these mistakes, right? But I always get the centuries and the years wrong. It's 1870 something that the building was built, and it's got this. If you go inside, you've got this beautiful grand hall and these old staircases to go into this room, which is lined with books on one side, and you've got this podium on which the judges sit with their wonderful robes, and the lawyers with their wigs, and it's all very much like it's steeped in a culture of justice, and which is ancient and which has strength. And actually, it's a wonderful facade to hide grave injustice, which is what is happening in this case. And I'm hoping that the change from Westminster Magistrates Court and Old Bailey to the Royal Courts of Justice will mean that there are some people, at least, who are deeply committed to law and who are deeply committed to at least the fundamentals of due process. The sad thing is this, it's being argued in very narrow terms. So it's virtually impossible to succeed.
Is the actual court case, appeal case, also going to be in this building?
Yeah. So that's what will happen on the 27th and 28th of October. So that appeal will be heard. Once the decision on that is heard, my understanding is the next we will have, depending on whether the case goes in favor of Julian or otherwise, there will be something called a cross appeal. And then, it'll go to the Supreme Court. And
a cross appeal means that his lawyers can also make their own appeals, right? They can also make their own.
That's right. But my understanding is, and somebody will have to correct me if I'm wrong, because there might be some of your viewers who heard, because it's very funny because, I was in the courtroom in the actual well, but I couldn't hear everything that was said. But some of the microphones that were picking up the stuff for the people who were on the video link could hear things better. So maybe somebody will correct me either in terms of my knowledge of the process or in terms of what was said in court. But my understanding is now the next stage of the process is on the 27th and 28th of October. The lawyers on both sides wanted 4 days, and there were 4 days available. So there were dates available on the 20th and the 21st, and also on the 27th and the 28th. But the judge intentionally said that they could not have 4 days, they had to have 2 days. And the lawyers on both sides have been restricted to 30 pages in the submissions they have to make. So this cuts down the volume of content that the judges will have before them. And at the High Court level, the kinds of things that are argued are largely around points of law rather than on points of evidence. But I believe that if there is material new evidence, then those can be raised. But my understanding is the key bits of evidence, for example, the Siggy stuff, is not going to be raised by the US prosecution. I did want to ask Mark if anybody had heard any more, especially your Spanish listeners, have heard any more about the Spanish case, because one of the things that Bereza did in her ruling was to say that, the Spanish case was still underway, and as far as she was concerned, it was not clear that the people who were spying on Julian, that is the US people who were spying on Julian, were directly connected to the people who were prosecuting him. So what she's saying is there's some separation within
Okay.
I think that was the implication, that there is some separation, and therefore until the Spanish case is decided, it cannot be. But I have to go back and read the Bereza judgment again. So please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember differently. But
I remember at one point she used a CNN article.
She's entirely corrupt.
Yeah. Well, that all the judges were compromised.
Okay, well,
I think we have to be careful about, in the UK, we've got very strong contempt of court laws. So in terms of how we criticize judges and whom we call corrupt, etc., you have to have huge amounts of evidence. What we can say is that, the process really failed to bring out any of the issues. I don't know, wherever you are, what the requirements are, Do you guys have similar requirements where you are in terms of whether you can criticize a judge, etc.?
I actually don't know.
I have no
This
idea.
is just
I just know it's
emotions.
bad.
This is emotions, right? I mean, you have this feeling that something isn't right about this judge, right? That she's obviously not being objective. She's not in the middle as she should be. But you did mention the Spanish case, Deepa, and that actually goes into another thing that you know a lot about, and that is the Craig Murray case, right? Because he was supposed, if I'm correct, he was supposed to be a witness in that case, right? He was supposed to speak there in the Spanish.
Yeah, he was supposed to give evidence in Spain, but as a result of him being found in contempt of court here in Scotland, he was asked to surrender his passport.
Yeah.
And because he had surrendered his passport, he could not travel to Spain. And many people have made the point that it is very convenient that Craig was deprived of his passport just at the time when he was supposed to travel abroad to speak. And there are two kind of camps within the Craig Murray discourse. One camp which clearly sees the links between what's happening to Craig and what's happening to Julian, and that Craig was one of the. And yesterday, it was amazing not to have Craig's voice explaining what was going on, because Craig has this brilliant ability to very promptly and in very huge detail explain what's going on in the courtroom, but also to bring a sense of the feel of the courtroom to people and to say what was actually going on.
Well, I mean, we remember what happened with Ola Binney and how they treated him, and that was immediately after Julian was in prison. I mean, like, it just seems like, again, that they're following the whole entire plot that was written years ago, where they literally said that they would go after every single associate around WikiLeaks. They would go after supporters. They'd go after everybody, and including Julian, obviously. But I mean, it's so insane what we're seeing. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, with Craig Murray too. I mean, he was like you said, he was set to be a key witness, right?
I don't think he was I'm not sure he was a key witness. I think there were a number of other witnesses, but Craig was one of the people who was spied upon while he was in the embassy, and I'm sure that Craig, being who Craig is, understands various connections. So I'm sure it would have been supportive to Julian's case. With Craig, the situation is really bad. He's now in prison in Scotland. The one saving grace is that before he went to prison, it was not clear whether he would be treated whether the contempt of court would be treated as civil contempt or criminal contempt. If you're treated as criminal contempt, you don't even get some of the basic privileges in terms of seeing people. You're only allowed a certain number of calls, etc., etc. So he's being treated as a civil prisoner, which means that for those of you who've not heard this, the way the Craig Murray case unfolded, and I'll start from the end rather than from the beginning, was that Craig had been convicted of contempt of court, and what was said to him was that he offered, as part, in terms of the sentencing, to do community service, and he was told, "Oh no, you can't do community service because Craig has a serious heart condition, and he has all kinds of other pulmonary type issues." Which means that he faints sometimes in the day, and if you're alone in a cell, that can be really dangerous. You can't have medical care, etc. And they said, no, you can't do that because you're not fit enough. Instead, they decided to give him an 8-month prison sentence. And this is the first time that a journalist has been treated in this way for contempt of court. What's also really depressing about Craig's case is that Craig doesn't know to this day whom he supposedly identified in this jigsaw identification. So for those who weren't familiar with Craig's case, and Mark, I don't know, you guys must have talked about it many times, but Craig's case was based on this new concept called jigsaw identification, which is very similar, for those of you who are familiar with the Assange case, to this idea that Assange put people at risk through the WikiLeaks releases. This bullshit.
He sat there and redacted that. Like, I just don't understand, like, how these people can sit there and lie and say this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
and
so
it came out in
ridiculous.
Chelsea's trial that even the US Army admitted that was not the case, right? Nobody was put at risk. Nobody had actually come to harm as a result of WikiLeaks releases.
Right.
And this was,
They
this
tried to
one-
lie and say that somebody was killed, this and that. I mean, like, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and nobody was ever harmed or killed. And they tried their best to find evidence, as you can imagine the US would try to do, to try and pin anything on Julian, but they were never able to establish any evidence in that regard. And it's very similar in Craig's case, where he's saying where the argument is that there are different people all over the world have different bits of information, and the aim in terms of protecting witnesses, of protected witnesses, is that you don't provide yet another bit of information that helps to make the puzzle become complete. And now, one of the things this ignores is that you as an individual don't know what other pieces other people hold unless that information is in the public domain. And in Craig's case, they didn't judge it on the basis of an ordinary member of the public being able to identify any of these protected witnesses. They judged it in terms of somebody potentially an expert, somebody quite close to this person, being able to identify this person. What's also interesting was all the protected witnesses in that case, none of their case was upheld. Their case was undone by a majority female jury. So in a case in which there is real serious concern about conspiracy among senior people in the SNP in order to stitch up Alex Salmond, where Alex Salmond in the civil case has earned hundreds of thousands or at least tens of thousands of pounds for the kind of way in which the prosecution was carried out, is now, using the same case, they're trying to punish the one person who reported on the defense side of the story and made it obvious that people should know what's really going on. Because otherwise, if the way the judge has framed this decision is that people who work for the mainstream media somehow ascribe to a higher standard because they follow a certain code of conduct, the Ipso code. Whereas those who are independent bloggers or independent journalists are just not of the same quality, is essentially what is being said through that judgment. And that's really worrying for journalism again. Sorry, I don't know if somebody else wants to carry on from there.
No, I mean, like, I just wanted to give as much information as possible about the hearing of yesterday, because you were there, and that's what we rely on.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and be there for all of, as long as possible in terms of Julian's hearings, and try and hopefully Craig will be back sometime soon to give proper coverage. But my job is slightly more as an independent observer. These opinions that I provide are not part of the legal observation. That's more independent. This is more as somebody who's watching this, as an ordinary citizen who's watching this unfold before their eyes and feels really concerned about the way in which journalism and freedom of expression are being curtailed in this country. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're humble. I mean, you know a lot about this case, and definitely your opinion is much respected. But you're humble, and that's only speaks for you.
I'm a hothead here because I just get so
Me too.
pissed off. I get so pissed off with this, seeing it's a perversion of justice left and right. This drives me nuts.
There is someone in the chat who asks, is it possible to get a picture put out there on social media and if necessary leaked so that other humans can see just how bad his condition is? Well, probably would need some kind of permission.
Against it, actually.
Yeah.
I'd recommend against it, because last time around, somebody who thought they were being very, I don't know, very, very creative, managed to take a photo of Julian in court Of course, it was shocking and horrifying to see him in that glass box, and of course, that changed opinion. But actually, that also caused a huge problem for those who were in court because it was impossible to get in. So that you've got to weigh that up, and also, it's only a small number of people are in that courtroom, so it's very obvious if you've leaked a photo who took it.
Yeah.
So it puts people at huge amounts of risk. And personally, I would not support that because I just think it puts people at risk when all of us should be taking care of ourselves and making sure that we can do the maximum we can do to get Julian free.
I hope that
The
answers it.
Guardian, I think, has a rough sketch of how he looked. I mean, obviously, I can't speak to how accurate it is or not, but I know some outlets have published like drawings of what he looked like based off of descriptions, at least. But yeah,
Okay, well, it would be up to Stella and Julian themselves, I guess, if they want to do that. But yeah, well, I hope that answers the question at least, Navigator, and what Deepa thinks of that. Well, it was a fair question. I mean, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I think hackers and technologists and all these people are all clever, capable people, and somehow or the other, people will get around the law and get around the rules and reveal things.
Yeah, of course you would be able to. Of course you would be able to leak or release a picture of Julian, but I mean, it shouldn't be against his will, right?
What does it achieve for us?
Yeah.
What does it achieve? Does it create a situation where they have even more excuse to hide him from us? Does it create a situation where people in court are limited, which means that we don't really understand what's going on and we have to rely on third parties? Does it reduce the rights of the press to cover the case? All these kinds of things have to be weighed up, and I don't know. I hate to discourage people who have great ideas, but I personally would not recommend it. I think we have to do everything we can to. We don't need yet another picture of Julian looking terrible to say he should be out, right? We've got lots of pictures of him looking terrible.
Yeah,
Well,
we know what they're doing.
We've already just seen a picture of Julian in the police van while arriving to the court again, and he looks like he has aged. He's like in his late 40s, right? And he looks like he's like
it was
60
his 50th birthday on
or 50,
this July.
50, I'm sorry.
Well, and
So so
Laura Heimer is actually making a fair point. I guess we should not use empathy as a weapon. We need a reason to make our point, right?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's the stress that they're putting on him. It's making him age. Like, in my opinion, at least,
I had a discussion with Doctors for Assange people on air before. They said, okay, so this was actually my argument too. I posted that on Twitter too, and that is when you put people under constant stress, it creates this stress hormone in their body called cortisol. It actually reduces muscle tissue and brain tissue, and the fact that they're keeping him in a small cell and at the same time releasing this stress hormone inside him, that actually has that effect. He's not able to recover from it because he can't do like sports and everything, all these things. So yeah, he's physically being damaged by it. That's pretty much our argument. And I think it was actually you were also on there, Deepa, back then with the other person from Doctors for Assange where we discussed that. And
Sonia Henry.
Yeah, Sonia Henry was there on with you, and yeah. And
The doctors have released another letter some weeks ago about Julian, and we need to start getting them back on and getting people to talk about it. One of the things with I don't know, Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, and Glory and AJ, if you agree. One of the problems with us talking online is it's great to disseminate information amongst people, some of whom are already, converts to the cause. It makes us think that we are more powerful outside online than we actually are. And I think Glory's idea earlier of getting more people, um, ordinary people, to start paying attention to this is the one that we have to go for. Because in the online sphere, all our creativity and our intelligence can be seen, but in those places, it's all hidden. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining myself well.
Are
No,
we
I
actually
think it makes sense.
are we an echo chamber or not? Are we actually reaching the normal people, or are we still an echo chamber in that sense?
Yeah, partly about being an echo chamber, but also partly about, when we're online, because we are slightly, and you guys in particular, when you're anonymous, you can say what you want to say, right? But if you do it in the real world rather than online, then you get stamped on like Craig Murray has been.
Yeah.
So our strongest comments, our strongest opinions are reserved for the online world. But we need those strongest comments and opinions to be released into the real world as well, whether it is through, because we don't have the strength of the mainstream media behind us. So it is things like flyers and posters and pictures and talking to people. That's the only way we can change things, and it's slow. And the my worry is that when we do things a lot online and when we can do things a lot anonymized, we don't realize how shit it is out there in the real world to do it for real.
Yeah. We have
That's a fair point.
yeah, with the echo chamber it's also like I mean like when we are like on social media on Twitter or whatever, and we get amplified a lot by people who are in our scene, right? And they all know what's going on, and they keep spreading it. But like in the real in the real world, when you talk to people, most of them don't even know about it. Like in my own country, there
True.
was only one broadcaster saying something about it while the court case was going on, and they were just saying this guy is accused of hacking in the USA, and he is going to be extradited to the USA because they say he's a hacker and he hacked into the military. That's pretty much what our mainstream media said about it. And we do have like one political party, well actually two.
They're reading press releases. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
be fair, we have.
Or it's he was the one that helped Trump win, wasn't he? Da da da. Released Hillary's emails and all that. Like, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah, that they don't really care
Yep.
much about that part in our country, but I mean so we have the Pirate Party. To be fair, they're speaking out for Assange, but they don't have a seat in our parliament. So we have the Socialist Party, of course, also speaking out for Assange. But they're minorities in that sense, like a tiny minority in our country, to be honest. It used to be different, but it's like that now. Yeah, and our media isn't really talking about it. It's pretty much just us. My friend Rico, who speaks out about it on his own platforms, etc. And for the rest, it's pretty much just us and the pirates. And yeah, that's where it ends. And when I talk to people in the street, they don't know about it. They usually confuse him with Edward Snowden, right? Well, but when you inform them, they're on your side. That's the thing, and that's what I said earlier on too. The second they learn about it and you explain the entire situation, they're almost always supportive of Julian Assange, and I think that is where I have to say it again. That's where the true strength is. So in every single way, like you use flyers, stickers, you keep informing all your friends and family close to you. That already helps a lot if you inform your friends and family, because they're more willing to listen to you than the average person on the street. And if you convince them to be like really a strong supporter of this, then they might go out and also talk about this to other people, their friends, and you create this, and at least before the end of October we can get something really big going. That's the thing, and you have to keep repeating, because the mainstream media and whatever these spin doctors are doing, pushing this whole Trump, Russia, rape narrative, that those are just it keeps on. They keep on going with their lies, but they repeat it, and there is a masses of people believe it because it gets repeated to them, and it's a form of hypnosis, and it works. So to counter that, you also need to repeat it to people, and that's what we're always trying.
Military.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's military's cyber warfare.
It is.
Yeah.
We know how to counter it. We do
Well,
that all the time.
and it's almost easier. Well, actually, no, it's not almost. I've found it easier to talk to people who know nothing about the case than people who have watched like the basic level mainstream media coverage on the case. Because for people who are just hearing about it, it's easy for them to understand in a sense and understand the urgency about it. Like, oh, a journalist who released war crimes is in prison for that. I know the justice system here sucks because I don't watch mainstream media. So, okay, I can understand that. Well, like, what can I do next? Versus, like, people who watch kind of that surface level coverage, and you get, like, what I was saying earlier, where they were like, oh, he was the one that helped Trump win, didn't he, though? I don't know about that. Doesn't he have, like, rape charges, too? And it's like, no. You got, and then you're already like having to step back a bit before being able to have a productive conversation with someone about it. So like that's why I'm an advocate for talking to anybody, because I found it easier to talk to homeless people about issues than I have to quote unquote educated people, because they don't have a bias. They don't have that, like AK was saying, the freaking psy war in them. They don't have that, so yeah.
Deepa, you've gone quiet a bit.
No, I just, yesterday was, I don't know about other people who go to this thing, but I come out feeling so sad
Of course.
and so alone. I mean, it feels very much like a personal thing, and I don't know the guy, right? I never met him, and so despite that, the pain that you feel is just, and I can just imagine how much worse it must be for those people who are really his friends and family. Anyway,
Well,
I'm going to have to
I
duck out in a bit, but I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are any.
do want to say one thing about Julian. I did DM with him in the past, but it is nothing special because actually he was not elitist at all. His DMs were open, and you could always easily reach him on Twitter, social media, whatever. He's one of us.
No, there's some gatekeeped.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
his personal Twitter, whatever. Like I know, there's always, but I'm just saying, like he's one of us, right? He's not like some elite person who is like hard to reach and some celebrity, whatever. He becomes a celebrity because because of the way he's being treated right now, and there's like I think we're at millions of people speaking out about this. That's why he's famous now, because this is a public crucifixion against a guy, against an innocent journalist. That's the thing. But he's just one of us. He's just a normal person, an activist, a journalist, someone who wants to do the right thing. And yeah, he hit the people a little too hard, I guess, who the criminals in power. Right? This is all my opinion. This is I'm like allowed to give my opinion. But yeah, no, that's the thing. So you have to understand. And what I want to say with this is that the same thing can happen to all of us, right? And it is going to happen to all of us if we allow this to continue. So because this is about an extradition. Keep in mind, he has already been extradited from Ecuador and thrown in the hands of these people, and now he's dealing an extradition away from the UK into the United States, where he faces life in prison, right? And it also means that all other publishers, all other journalists can face the same future. If you want to publish on your own website, whatever, and you talk about the wrong people, they're going to come for you too, because they will have their they will have this case to refer to, right? Like they will say like, what Julian did was reasons enough to put him in there. We can get you too. Right? And you don't have a million of people supporting you. You can't speak out. So this is actually, I think, the defining moment where we all have to stop this, because if we don't, others after him will not. We will not be able to get the same resistance going against this ever again.
We'll be screwed. Yeah. I mean,
we'll
it's like how that poem goes. What was it? First, they came for the communists, and I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything. Then they came for me, and there was no one to stand for me. That's an abridged version of the poem, but it's like, if you don't stand up now, you inevitably weaken your resistance to when it happens to other people, and then when it eventually happens to you.
Yeah, that is a famous poem by Martin Niemöller, and he was a public enemy of Adolf Hitler. And he did that. He spoke that out against. And yeah.
I have a question for Deepa here. In regards to cross appeals and stuff like that, how long would that drag the case on? Could that take like 5 years?
I don't know, because there is no. One of the things that lawyers were saying yesterday was that the procedure for the cross appeals is not clear, and the jurisdictional issues as to whether it's the Secretary of State that allows the cross appeal or whether it is the judge that allows the cross appeal, again, that's, from what I understand, that's not clear. So it's, I think it's important that we don't rely on the cross appeal, because actually we need to stamp this out now. This, you know, it's amazing that Julian's health has managed to survive this long. But
Yeah.
To answer your question, AK, I don't know.
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it does seem like his health is deteriorating at a rapid rate, and that he's not going to survive this. I mean, it's horrible what they're doing to him, and I mean, you just telling me that there's nothing clear about a cross appeal. I mean, that just tells me they've planned this. In my opinion, they've planned this out very well. Yeah, I'm really at a loss for words for all of this.
I mean, there is no doubt that a cross appeal will take place, from what I understand. But what is doubtful is what the process is for it, because it's not clearly set out.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
So I'm sorry if I'm saying misleading about that.
I also have one thing I want to ask you, Deepa. This is because we discussed this in the past on ABB a few times too. That why is he still in Belmarsh and not in house arrest? Because I saw the
Essentially,
go ahead.
Beretsa said it was because, to be fair to the US, and because Julian had, in their opinion, you know, they constantly say this, that they think he's evaded justice for the last 7 years when he was at the Ecuadorian embassy. They don't recognize the asylum. They don't recognize the threat on his life. They see that as somebody who's breached bail and therefore cannot be trusted to have bail again. And one of the reasons they say he cannot be trusted, and this is where even the supporters are being weaponized against him, they say not only is he resourceful, now he has lots of supporters. Almost as if that is a crime in itself. The fact that he has lots of supporters means he should not be given bail, because then, of course, in the middle of a global pandemic, he will escape somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a nonsense.
It's a weird reasoning to me. I mean, you can also put guards in front of a house arrest. I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, and you know, you can. He could have an electronic tagging. The tagging has changed in the years between the time when he moved into the embassy and otherwise. So these are all excuses, and these are excuses that people in the legal community actually do buy. because as far as they're concerned, oh, he jumped bail once, so he cannot be trusted again. So they are trying their best to find ways to accept the narrative put forward by the state. Whereas actually, any normal person who's not a lawyer, who's not within the judiciary, and actually quite a lot of intelligent people within the judiciary and the legal community are looking at this and saying this is a nonsense.
Yeah.
There is so much that could be done differently and how Julian could be treated differently. This is intentional torture.
Yeah, well, I mean, like from a legal perspective, it would actually make their case a lot stronger if they would allow him these things. Like, actually give him like all the opportunity to use whatever is possible to defend himself and then win, right? That would make it an actual victory, because now it is the entire public can see that he's being treated so bad that even if they would have a victory in whatever way, it's not a real victory. You're literally you're doing whatever you can. You're almost killing your opponent. It's like you're publicly you're mentally torturing him. Even that story about that laptop he was sent with the keys glued, that he couldn't even use it. And I've read that part that he couldn't even get Winter close. He had to like.
Yeah, that was incredibly frustrating.
Well,
I mean, we were calling Belmarsh every day, going, where the fuck are his winter clothes? Oh no, they're in storage. Da da da. We'll get back to you another time. Perhaps you should lodge this complaint with another department. Fuck out of here. I mean, but yeah, this is the U.S. we're dealing with. They don't want a real victory. They just want to crush the opposition.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Like you have a real victory if you beat a lion in court, right? Not like if you beat a deer, you've broken all his legs first, and he can't defend himself, right? He can't even, like, he had even problems remembering certain things about himself, like his birth date and stuff. At that, if we reach that point, then you just know there is something wrong. Like, that's not a fair trial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the U.S. I mean, I can understand maybe like Mega Brain James Lewis QC being like, oh man, you know what? I wish I could kind of like, flex my lawyering skills a bit and maybe get like, a real dub here. But I'm representing the U.S. They don't actually want to win. They just want to crush dissent. Perhaps there's an ounce of that mindset there. But then again, that would assume that we're not dealing with sociopaths and nonces. So,
guys, I'm going to have to head off. But it's been really, thanks so much for inviting me. It's nice to be here because it's nice to talk to you guys, because it's nice to see other people who are angry about this in some ways and who are doing stuff about it. So thanks so much for having me. And
and
thanks for coming, Deepa.
I can just promise that we will do whatever we can to organize. Say that again.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. I mean, I guess, if if we can get something nice that we could then communicate to Julian, that would be very nice. If we could put some kind of, I don't know, I'm just throwing an idea out there, and maybe something will come of it. Maybe if we could get some kind of collective endeavor where loads of people contribute something artistic that then Julian can be told about, that this was done for him, then maybe that would be quite nice. I don't know. Anyway, that's the last parting thought. Lovely to see you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Deepa. Much love.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay. There was we were just getting Deepa in because she was at the actual hearing yesterday, right? And she witnessed it all in front of her. And yesterday she was kind of too tired afterwards, so we had to do it today. But she is probably the most reliable witness we could get on this on air.
Yeah. I give like Deepa and Kevin mad props for being able to sit in these court hearings and report on it with a rational head, and not literally be screaming at the prosecution. I give them mad ups for that, because that's something that I wouldn't be able to do.
No, me neither. I wouldn't be able to do that. No. You'd feel way too frustrated with it. It's like
Well, I mean, you guys know what I'm gonna do during freaking Commander X's hearings, so like it's no secret that I clearly won't be able to. So, I give them mad ups.
Yeah, but at this point, like any normal person, like it takes a lot of effort to actually keep calm, right? When you're seeing this in front of you, because like it's not a fair trial. It's like we see the free press being destroyed in front of us. We see an innocent man being destroyed in front of us. Like
look at the law that they proposed in the UK. Look at the law that was proposed about journalists. Did you see that? Did you pay attention to that? What they put through, or what they were proposing? I'm sorry.
well, you can explain it.
So they want to rewrite the Secrecy Act.
It's the official Secrets Act.
Yeah, they want to rewrite that, and they want to make it so if a journalist writes anything that's damaging against the government, they can be charged. Like, what?
Oh, so we can't. That at that point, you're not even a journalist. You're a stenographer. Like,
Yeah, I know. It's like they're
if
literally
you
attacking.
can't challenge the state, what the fuck are you doing as a journalist?
And you know what I love about that? Because they lied. They lied so hard about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They forged the Downing Street report, and they copy-pasted a whole bunch of fucking academic articles together and said that it was a intelligence report. And they got caught for doing that. So, if that law passed and you were to expose that, they could put you in prison. Fuck off.
Yeah. So they want. It would literally affect sources, editors, and reporters, and says make them potentially subject to uncontrolled official bans, not approved by a court, and punished much more severely if they do not comply. So it goes outside of the court system.
Oh my goodness gracious!
If that law passes, I just say, okay, and I know Mark's going to give me a disclaimer after I say this,
Oh god!
but I just say, I hope that every fucking Annan and their goddamn mother hacks the shit out of London and the UK and exposes everything. Just for the lulz of it, because now it's illegal to report on criminal corruption.
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks to Commander X.
I have to give the disclaimer on this. These are not the opinions of this show. This is just an individual on our show giving his opinion, and it's probably very emotional, and it is just how it is. But
you can't even say it with a fucking straight face, thinking the same fucking thing I am.
Okay. Deepa was being so nice. It was being so nice and so professional. We have to go here again.
I'm just pissed off, man. I'm pissed off at all these governments trying to control journalism. Like the goddamn White House over here in the U.S. trying to say what is and isn't journalism. They're going to be able to choose fucking who decides. Who can be on social media and who can't. That one thing, and then the other thing that they want to control journalism. I mean, it's just pisses me off, man. The governments are so fucking corrupt. People, you cannot allow your governments to make it illegal to talk about your governments.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you allow that.
Okay, what they're saying is they have to. They want to increase maximum sentences, and there will be. There is no. They're saying there is no. Right now, there is no distinction in severity between espionage and the most serious unauthorized disclosures, including onward disclosure in the press. And they say journalism could even create far more serious damage than a spy.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Sorry, but the free press.
They're right. They're right.
In terms of embarrassment, in terms of accountability.
In terms of holding the government accountable and embarrassing them, yes, you're right. Yeah, it can. But guess what? If your government's corrupt, it deserves to be fucking exposed. Because that's the journalist's job, is to keep you in line and keep you accountable. And if there is a law against journalism, and you can't talk about the government and all its corruption and expose something corrupt, you're going to have absolute tyranny. Tyranny with a capital T.
Well, I mean, here's a radical idea here, gentlemen. If you don't want your crimes exposed, perhaps don't commit the crimes to begin with.
Oh, you're saying that for the governments.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's a radical idea. I'm sorry I'm not the director of the CIA, so I can't sit in front of a room and brag about my tenure at West Point and talk about how much, as director of the CIA, we lied, we cheated, and we stole. I'm sorry, I can't do that, but...
No. They taught us to lie, cheat, and steal. That's what he said. That was his exact quote, and I was like, And that's like, okay? Like, that's
just a little dust on the shoulder. No big deal.
It's just so ridiculous because all these governments, no matter what government you choose, have all been caught up in some type of corruption scandal where it affected the people, and now they want to try to push these laws of where they can decide what is and isn't journalism. They can decide if this information is too dangerous for the public to know, or they can decide that you just revealed information that we don't want the public to know, so your ass is going to prison. It's just, it's so insane, man. I can't. Like, I can't see where we're heading. Between... who's that? Who is this?
It's a fellow Jitzer. I think it's Steve. Heard him clear his throat. Oh no, it's Ted.
Yeah.
So he's like, who is this?
I heard someone clear their throat, so I was like, okay, that's a Steve thing, I think.
No, I was like, that's why I was like, who the hell is this? Because I just heard them clear their throat, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right. I didn't hear chocolate milk being opened up, so I didn't think it would be Ted.
Damn it!
There we go. Now we know he's drinking chocolate milk because he's starting to puke.
Oh my god.
No.
No? Alright, well, I tried.
I'm trying to smoke, but don't make me laugh, and I'm trying to smoke.
Oh, I thought you were drinking chocolate milk, and then you started laughing, and it was like starting to come out your nose, and you're puking. No, all right. I try. I gotta find a way, some way to cheer myself up, because otherwise, I'll go insane.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Deepa said, though. Like, take the same opinions you have online into the real world and just talk with people around you. Because,
Maybe talk with people around you. I mean, if I took my real... I won't go there. Mark will have to give another disclaimer.
Okay, well, yeah, I know it's like different in the situation, but I mean, I think for the people watching, at least, or for me at least, there's like a lot of merit to just going around your community and talking to people that way. Showing up to protests, doing that kind of stuff, and I mean, like, yeah, because people can feel the passion. If you're in this cause for the right reason, they can feel it when you're talking to them. So because they know the importance of this case, they're more willing to listen, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know, this is just from my own experiences of protesting, seeing people who come in and want to know what's up just because they see a bunch of people who are so passionate about something. I mean, that's one of the things that got like huge numbers of people to show up in the streets for the Black Lives Matter protest, and like, yeah, let's get those numbers. And like, even just protesting for Assange, there are so many people that come up and they're like, oh man, this looks really interesting. Like, you guys are talking about serious stuff here. Like, what's up with that? Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, what's that? And then it just blossoms or ignites.
Hurt from tweeting. Damn. It was a bit of a tweet overload, right?
Until we all get banned again, like always.
I wouldn't mind, bro, because this new font change on Twitter is trash. I've been holding this in. This is some fucking Microsoft Business Outlook looking ass head ass shit. It's so bad. Like, the fuck is this font? Helvetica? It's what?
We thought it was an our end at first. Like, it was like black and white suddenly. Weird.
No,
it just looks so bad. This is some fucking Helvetica head ass. Oh my god.
It's not even the font that's the issue. It's that they changed everything to frickin' black and white.
Yeah, that's annoying too. It's like they're trying to make it businessy. I don't know, but it sucks.
I don't know what the hell they're trying to do, but it looks very ugly.
Yeah.
That's the best way that I can put it. But yeah, I mean,
we have multiple questions, guys, in the chat. Just saying. But first, we have how is it possible that the
I should
countries
probably open the chat.
How is it possible that the countries who've subsided with the deep state will one day turn against the deep state and attack in one way or another? If so, how will they do so?
What? What? How is that? What?
How will the countries who side with these people suddenly go against them?
They won't. What do you mean? They have alliances. They and like define deep state. I mean, like, do you mean like the IC, the intelligence community, which, or do you mean like compartmentalized groups within the CIA that run various different programs? Because here's the thing with deep state, okay? The subcontractors for the NSA and the CIA are basically deep state. Because here's the thing, they're compartmentalized, they have all of the resources of government, and there's no oversight over them.
Why do we even call them deep state and not like the global government right now?
Deep state would be going back to the 1980s with Iran-Contra, and how the CIA had set up a shadowy government, in the words of Daniel Inouye, Senator of Hawaii. The CIA set up a shadowy government and gave it its own fundraising mechanism through BCCI, and they set up various different ways to fund this. And they also had their own Air Force, their own Navy, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they really formed a whole entire military-industrial complex outside of the normal military.
And it's not even the government itself, but the people controlling the governments that are really concerned, right?
Well, that's the thing that's that people miss. I mean, it's like the president doesn't control these subcontractor agencies because they have full resources of the government, but they have the ability to have no oversight over them. That is typical for agencies. So they work under an agency as a subcontractor, right? But since they're subcontractors, they don't have to abide by the law of U.S. agencies.
Like
it's a loophole.
Like in today's HB Gary's.
Correct. Well, HB Gary would be one of them, but that's just a security firm contractor.
Yeah, but they are subcontracted from the government, right?
For instance, Blackwater, right? Blackwater is has operated for years as a mercenary firm in the Middle East, and going beyond that, I mean, you have G4S Security, which they act as a security firm, not cybersecurity, but actual like bodyguard security and stuff like that. Um, and those guys, G4S, they have the right to kill. They have a license to kill, I should say. So, um, yeah, I mean, we can go into whole contractor stuff. I mean, I'm not scared to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, I mean, I guess the question also related to like, will will governments eventually turn against the deep state?
I just hate this word deep state because it's just it was used with QAnon, and also on top of that, people like to say that the deep state is quote unquote the Illuminati, this and that, and that's not a factual thing. The deep state would be the military industrial complex, and the military industrial complex expands like an octopus. Hint, hint, Danny Casolaro. They expand like an octopus all over the world, let alone just here in America. So the deep state, I really hate that term. I prefer the term octopus, as that was the old term used by Danny Casolaro, and the military-industrial complex has its tentacles all over the place, and they use subcontractor agencies, or not agencies. They use subcontractor organizations or groups under the agencies themselves, so they can skirt around laws in the U.S. So they can operate here on domestic soil. And the funny thing is, a lot of these contractor agencies are ran by people who were within the CIA, or people who came out of the NSA, or people who came out of the military. They run these subcontractor agencies under agencies so they can get around these laws. And, how are countries such as, I mean, if you say like the Five Eyes Agreement, how are the countries involved in the Five Eyes Agreement going to strike back against the military industrial complex? They're not. Like, they're involved in it. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I understand what Roy is trying to say. Indeed, there are those rich 1% who control governments because they own the world banks and they own all kind of big financial institutes, and yeah, they
right.
basically got the government under their finger. Right?
Well, that's a financial cartel. Yeah, yeah. That's the rich 1%. That's the black nobility families that you don't speak about, and all of those different groups of people where they own so much wealth that they actually have a say in the economic future of the country because they own these central banks. You know,
For example,
yeah, Rothschild, yes, Rothschild, but Rothschild is not a black nobility family.
Ooh.
well, they own most of the banks.
They're not a black nobility family.
Okay.
Black nobility family. Look up what the black nobility families, and then you'll figure it out. again, a lot of these wealthy people, they own the central banks. You're right. Even though supposedly the biz is the central banks that owns, or is the central bank that owns the central banks. Okay, to a certain degree, yes, that's true. But these guys that own the central banks and the central banks themselves and biz and everything, they all meet and discuss economic policy and blah blah blah. I mean,
Well,
so,
who controls money controls the world, right?
there was a quote, actually. There's a quote by either Rockefeller or Rothschild, and I can't remember who it is, where it says about, "I care not who makes the nation's laws, as long as I control the printing of the money." And I know that's like horribly, horribly worded, but I'm paraphrasing it. It's not direct, but it's true to a certain degree. I mean, if you control the money, who gives a shit who creates the laws? I mean, you can write the laws yourself if you control the nation's money.
I want to give a shout out to Kevin Gostula for his tweet because he was giving a complete transcript of what was said in the court hearing of Assange.
Yeah, Kevin is always doing really great reporting on the case. He's been on.
Yeah,
He's been on our show before, but we should probably ask him back again sometime because he is a good reporter on this case. He knows a lot about it.
He's so nice too.
It's been like almost like 2 years since he was on our show, I think.
well, he knows more about this case than anybody. He was tweeting out complete transcripts of what was said and what was done, etc., etc.
He's just a fast
like I
typer,
said.
Dad. He's doing good. He's a fast typer. He types like crazy.
Well,
I was like, what the hell? Tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet. That's why my fingers hurt. Because I was retweeting him all the time and posting it on my Discord server as well.
To be fair,
And,
Matters was also fast. I don't know Matters too well. I
Yeah.
saw him once in London, but he was also really fast. He was giving a lot of updates too. I was using both sources actually, but you have the consortium news too. Was also following that one.
I have
Consortium.
to follow that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Luckily we have.
I was not following Kevin directly before, but now I do. But Independent Left News, I think, was retweeting him, and I follow that thread, so I saw the tweet coming by all the time. So I was doing actually multiple things. I was retweeting it, and I was at the same time posting it on my Discord server as well. My God, I barely could keep up with all the news coming in.
what was the other questions that you had there, Mark? Now that we got through that deep state question that really just kind of, yeah,
Triggered AK.
in some ways. I just hate that fucking word. Like, I really hate that word, and it's because of the
Deep state.
Are you like attempting to trigger me? It's like attempt to trigger me and get like secrets out, or like oh, this is how things function. Like I don't know.
No, I have plenty of questions, but Deepa will come back later on. No, I mean most will become clear in October. I'll do my best to be there. Tat will probably go with me. We'll just.
I hope so. I am interested.
Yeah, this is all high quality camera and everything.
You guys better go together. If you go separate, you're gonna disappear.
That depends also
Good point.
the restrictions, of course, because
We will
like
we
I
will
said,
find a
I'm
way,
not-
and don't worry about the restrictions. It's fucking Europe. We will
I'm
find a
not
way.
I'm not vaccinated, and nowadays you have to be vaccinated to do anything. That's also pretty much fucked up.
Yeah.
No, travel sucks unless you have one of them CDC cards that, might be able to.
Well, the people who don't get vaccinated, who refuse, like me, are getting kind of discriminated, right?
I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
taking one
for
fucking
sure.
jab.
Yeah. I don't want to participate in a fucking experiment, because that's what it is.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but this vaccine only exists for such a short time. It isn't even tested in combination with people who use existing medicines. Like, you can't do this kind of stuff. So I'm not going to. I'm not taking it yet.
As I said, they know nothing about the long-term side effects.
No?
You know, that's one
They
of
know nothing about long-term or short-term side effects because it hasn't been tested, and it's still in testing until 2022 and 2023 in some cases for some of the variants of the vaccine.
yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, and this is the important part of this is that they're blaming people who don't get the VC for the new outbreak, but that doesn't exactly make sense because the people who are getting sick also have the VC. So therefore, it shows that the VC is ineffective and it does not kill the virus. It allows the virus to breed within the body, and there's a medical report from 2015, and it's common sense too, that if you allow a virus into your body and the VC doesn't kill it, it actually has the ability to mutate.
Did you hear about Germany? There was one woman working at the VC location who injected people with salt solution instead of the VC.
What a G.
And now thousands of people have to go back because they didn't get the VC, they got just salt solution.
Probably got arrested for that one, eh?
Yeah, but I mean, good on her.
It's
I mean,
great.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about all this too is that what they're doing is they are allowing this thing to mutate essentially, and they don't even realize it. That's how fucking stupid they are.
But the people who did get the VC, you know, they are as infectious as those who didn't get the VC.
Yeah, that's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
So allowing the virus inside your body with the VC in your body, which by the way the VC has inactive viral material. That's how VCs are made. So allowing that into your body with inactive material like that, they're literally allowing this thing to mutate. And here's the thing, again, I'd stand by this. You are not going to see any type of cure for this.
Well, I refuse to get the VC because I'm not a guinea pig.
Whoa.
You're not a what?
That.
You're not a Ted? What? What? What are you
What?
saying?
I'm not sure what was that noise, but it was terrible.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I said, you're not a what? And then you said Ted, and then I said, you're not a Ted?
No,
No, I heard him say he's not out.
yeah, I'm not sure what that was, but I heard some noise. I'm not a guinea pig, I said.
Oh, okay.
Oh, guinea pig, okay.
So yeah, I refuse to get the VC. I refuse it. But nowadays, it's like we, the people against the VC, are getting discriminated. We're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to do anything.
Well, exactly, because they're saying that the people without the VC are the ones spreading the virus, but that doesn't make sense because the same viral load is found in people with the VC, which means again that the VC doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's now ineffective. That's the word I should use. Ineffective is the word I should use. And that's not being anti-science or anti-vax or VC, but what it is it's explaining.
No, but they are giving us the illusion that taking the VC is on free will. But on the other side, they are restricting those who refuse. So they are kind of pushing it onto us, right?
Right, yes, that's true too. But here's the thing, again, if the body has the same viral load as somebody who doesn't have the vaccine and somebody who has the vaccine. And here's the other thing that people need to realize is that no matter what, you can still get this new variant and the other variants that are already being mutated by this fucking thing.
It's mutating freaking fast, right?
Oh, I've already gone through this. It's mutating so fast. It's mutating faster than the flu. So anybody who says, "Oh, this is just a flu," you're a fucking moron. It's not.
Guys,
just
I have
a
to.
flu.
I'm always thinking like to cut this second half off this broadcast. Just saying.
Well, yeah.
Because this broadcast is about specifically the court case, and in the chat they're already saying that this one is going to get banned because of this. I wanted to discuss this COVID stuff, of course, but we can do that in
I don't
3.5
even know.
hours.
I don't even know why. I don't even remember why we started discussing that. Somebody asked something.
No, in 3.5
because of
we're going live
travel.
again. In 3.5 hours we're going live again, right? We can just talk about it then.
Yeah, okay. I was just about because Mark wanted me to go to London with him, but yeah, that's how
what it was.
I'm not going to discuss how I would get into London, but I'm sure I can get into London in 2 days.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So if that's not an issue, I will come along and because
You can row your boat. Yeah, you can row your boat straight down the stream. Straight into London.
Yeah, but there's plenty of ways, but I'm not letting them know how we're doing it because then we will be watched anyway. But yeah, yeah.
Hide in the
Oh, we're gonna get copyrighted.
hide in the goddamn cargo container. Did you really just start singing "Row Your Boat"?
yeah.
No, I promise, Laura, we will talk about the whole Great Reset, Elite's comebacks in 3.5 hours. We could probably talk about it for like 5 hours in a row. Like it's
Okay. Anyhow, like I tweeted today, it's not just Julian Assange's freedom at stake, but the complete free press is on stake here, right? So that's why this is so important to get him out of there. Plus, of
Yeah.
course, it's just torture what they're doing now. I mean, the whole case is crumbling under their feet. Even witnesses admitted even that they were lying.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Even if the court case crumbles at their feet, they still just push forward with this. Like there's nothing fucking happening. It's so ridiculous. It's insane.
They're postponing.
You remember these are psychopaths, right?
Yeah, they are postponing just to get to a verdict to keep him in prison, which is basically torture, right?
It should be against the law, but oh no, it'll make the case unfair for the U.S. What? What the hell do you mean by that?
Well,
Bullshit. That's what it is.
It's bull fucking glue, right? I mean, the US can. No, I can't say that here on the show, but yeah.
US itself, I could say that. I don't know what exactly you want to say. I mean,
Yeah, after himself.
why can't you say that?
Language, because
Language? I've
Yeah.
said fuck multiple times. What do you mean? Like what?
Yeah.
Language? This is ABB.
Yeah, okay, they can go fuck themselves. Okay.
There you go. Good job, Ted.
Okay, we'll just end this.
You serve a chocolate milk.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to listeners who want to hear more about the whole COVID thing and stuff. Yeah, we'll discuss it more. I just think it's a little bit respect to Deepa, who has not given an opinion about any of this. He just focused on the Julian Assange case, and it's kind of like this kind of adds to her whole observation, and yeah, probably shouldn't do that.
Probably should not.
And
All
also,
right.
we have the risk of being.
That's fair.
Also, we have the risk of being removed from YouTube for this, which okay, we have it on other platforms too. We'll just re-upload it, but I mean,
There was a tweet from some Newsday that they are getting flagged again, which is bullshit again, right?
For like their fucking
No, Glory. No.
what?
Not the
What?
time. Not the time. Don't.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
the time.
Okay. Okay.
Ted is provoking you.
Okay.
Stop. You provoked me, but yeah, I didn't even realize what you did, but yeah, you did. Anyway,
All right, we'll discuss it tonight then.
Yeah.
let's end this, and we'll be back in 3 hours, 4 hours. What time is it? I don't even know.
4 hours.
5 hours if we adjust for Luby time.
Oh yeah, because he will fall asleep again.
Oh well, that's the case. We gotta add.
yo, this is
six.
can hear how big bully to get on air. This is how it is. Always a bully victim.
All right. Remember to spay and neuter all your politicians, lobbyists, royalty, military contractors, and politicians.